What's doing, everybody? Welcome to First Class Fatherhood. I'm Alec, and before I hit you with today's interview, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the link in the description so you can listen to all of the interviews I've done with so many tremendous dads, including Dana White, Deion Sanders, Tony Hawk, and so many others. Now let's get going with today's interview. All right, joining me now, a First Class father, David Burtka. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Hey, so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's start right here. How many kids do you have and how old are they?
I have two kids, and they're the same age because they're twins, and they're both 9 years old. One
Very
boy,
cool.
one girl.
Okay, 1-1. Are you going to try to break the tie with a third here, or are you guys all done?
No way. Done. Two and
What?
done. We had a big talk about it a couple years ago, and it just there's one boy, one girl. There's two of them. They're 9 years old. I think if we were to have another kid, it would be really hard to start over again. I mean, if anything, we would adopt an older kid, but it's a whole other set of problems, or not problems, but issues that you have to go through. Hurdles. My career is just starting again, so it's hard to sort of go back to babyhood or having kids and do that. Now that they're older, they're more sufficient and they're more independent, and it's a lot of work, as you know.
Yeah. I got 4 kids myself, so
Wow.
I hear you on that. What type of sports or activities are the kids into?
Well, they both do tennis. They both take tennis lessons. My daughter's into gymnastics. Uh, my They both love to swim. They're big swimmers. My son is not the biggest sports guy. He likes to play golf because my dad was a golf coach, so he likes getting tips from him. My son's really into D&D, like big into D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, and he has a dungeon master that he really loves, and he actually does games with us, which is really fun. And they're avid readers, and just love being kids.
Yeah, well, my oldest son is huge into the D&D as well, so I hear where you're coming from with
Yeah,
that.
I'd much rather have him do D&D than play, computer games all day, because it's so much more inventive and he tells storytelling, and there's,
Yeah, very
problems to be
interactive.
solved. Yeah, completely,
Yeah.
completely.
David, if you could, please just take a minute here to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
Well, I am a father, of course. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. I went to school for musical theater, and right after college, I started working on Broadway in a bunch of different shows. I was in the chorus and dancing and Beauty and the Beast on Broadway, and then Children of Eden, and a couple of Broadway shows. And then I went back to school for acting, and then I started working in doing a lot of straight plays for Edward Albee. So, and then, I ended up doing another musical and met my husband Neil when I was doing Gypsy on Broadway. And then my mom suddenly died of cancer. And I thought, I can't be acting and dealing with rejection quite a bit. So I ended up going to cooking school because it was something that I always loved to do. And it was therapeutic for me to, work in the kitchen and work with my hands. And also, the thing about cooking is that when you cook, your product is right in front of you, so you know if it's good or bad. Whereas acting, you put it out there and you can get rejected for just being yourself. So it's a really mental, kind of screwy sometimes to being an actor. But so I went to cooking school and I became a chef, and I had a catering company that I had for years in Los Angeles, and I worked with Mario Batali and I've done a lot of TV, and I wrote a book called Life is a Party because I used to throw a lot of parties. That was my job for a while. And I'm getting back into acting again because the kids are of that age that I can go do a Broadway show or go on location or do a TV show or something like that. So I like to ride the line between acting and acting and fatherhood and being in a marriage and all that. My life is very full with a lot of things right now.
Yeah, very, very cool, David. And so about how old were you then when you first became a dad here, and how did becoming a father kind of change your perspective on life?
It's interesting. I have another. When I was 24, I met a gentleman who was in the process of surrogacy, and he ended up having twins another set of twins. So there's another set of twins called that I had that I raised for 3 years before we called it off. So I was 24 when I first became a dad or a dad figure. I helped raise these kids from birth until 3.5, and now they're like nieces and nephews to me. We're very close. We talk all the time, and they're very close to me. I still keep in contact with their dad. Things didn't work out between us, but we're still very friendly. And then when I had Gideon and Harper, it was 9 years ago. So around 10 years ago. So I was 34 when I had my own kids. So.
Yeah, very cool. And how challenging is the process for gay dads that are interested in having kids? I mean, what are the options, and what made you decide with the option that you guys chose?
Well, this was 10 years ago, so a lot has changed with science now, but it is really, in order to have, this is really interesting with being a gay dad, because you really, if you want to have a kid, you have to go to a lot of lengths and quite a lot of money to have a kid. I mean, it's not like a straight couple where you accidentally have a kid or you just go out and do it. You have to go, meet with an agency, go and meet a surrogate, and the surrogate, for us, this is how it was. We met a surrogate, and the surrogate agreed to work with us. And then we found, after months and months and months of searching, we found an egg donor that we really liked, and she was anonymous. And we took one of my best guys' sperm and one of the best eggs, and we implanted them and had two separate embryos. So we had one of my embryos, my DNA, and one of Neil's DNA, and we implanted it into a different woman, so a different surrogate. So there were two different women involved, and we were lucky enough to have twins. So one of them's my DNA, one of them's Neil's DNA, and we know. I think we don't know necessarily whose is whose, because we never got a DNA test, but we're pretty sure whose is whose. We're just knowing our background and knowing. I mean, we're not dissimilar looking, but they definitely look like twins. But so that was the process. I mean, it was we kept in contact with the surrogate, and she was close with us for a really long time. I mean, we still are. We talk to her, even though the kids don't necessarily know her very well. But for nowadays, it's really wild for men or women to have children, gay parents to have children, because you can choose the sex. You can choose if you want one or two or three, or you can choose whose DNA it's going to be. I mean, science has come a really long way. It's pretty incredible what
Yeah,
they can do.
that's fascinating, David. I'm sure that you know which one is yours until one of them does something bad, and then you say, "Oh, you know where that one came from? That ain't mine." So.
It's true. I mean, it's true. We see things in the kids and go like, oh wow, that looks familiar. So.
How about as far as discipline, David? What type of disciplinarian are you as a father, and is it different than the discipline style that you grew up with?
Um, Discipline. I tend to be pretty tough. I mean, Neil tends to be more of the disciplinarian. I tend to be more of the motherly, nurturing. Come over here for a hug, and I tend to be the more maternal one in our relationship. But because I spend more time with them, I spend a lot more time with them. Well, not right now. We're all spending a lot of time together, but uh, but in terms of being, there's similarities and dissimilarities. I mean, my mom would do anything for us. I mean, she would bend over backwards, and she was a really great provider in so many things that she did. And I feel like I do the same thing for them. And in terms of doing things differently, I think I'm a little more lax. I think my mom was a little more controlling. And my dad was a little more controlling with me, and I feel like you got to let these kids be kids and let them be who they're going to be, whereas opposed to I was a different time back then where we were trying to mold the kids into being who you thought they should be. So if anything, I tend to let them be who they are more. uh Discipline, but I feel like I can be pretty tough on them. But it depends on what things, like with sugar, I don't really care. I mean, I do to a point, but these kids have been self-regulating with sugar for a really long time. I think all you need to do is give kids sugar, sugar all they wanted, and they'll get sick once, and then they're like, okay, I can monitor myself. It's the kids who don't necessarily get sugar a lot that go crazy, and it sort of rewires their brain. But I'm pretty strict on just morals, and just being a good person and being respectful and thoughtful and mindful. That's something that's really, really important in our house.
Yeah, good stuff, David. And I know that got to be a lot of pressure on you there, being a professional chef like you are. I do all the cooking in my family. I do the food shopping and the cooking every night. But if I get a bad dish, I can always say, "Hey, listen, I ain't no chef. You are." So, do your kids have like a favorite dish? Do the kids have like a favorite dish that you cook, or do they have one that they don't look forward to? What's the specialty there?
They're very rarely do they complain. I was having we talk about this story where I was having a bad day about a month ago, and I made this chicken soup, and I put way too much salt in it. It was not cute, and they didn't let me live it down. Like the one day I make a bad soup, I still hear about, oh, Dad, remember that salty soup you made? So. So it's crazy, but I mean, usually they really love my cooking. My son usually, he asks for steak. I make a lot of great steaks on the grill. He really enjoys that. My daughter wants poke, so I make a Hawaiian poke with rice and anything sort of Asian flavors they really, really like. But they're pretty keen on eating anything. Like I'm not, my son loves when I make swordfish. I mean, my son will eat anything. He's a human garbage disposal. So it's nice to have him in the house because he'll eat anything that I cook. But they're really good at eating a whole bunch of foods. But I've fed them and cooked for them everything since they were 6 months. They've had every sort of spice and type of flavor and every sort of piece of seafood and vegetable from the color of the rainbow is what we like to eat in our house. So they're really good eaters.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I have, like I said, 4 kids, and I have 4 very different palates. So it's very hard
Oh,
to please
interesting.
everybody at dinner time. So,
Do you
and
have you have did your kids request stuff since you're the cook in the house?
they do, but you know what? I've kind of got it down to almost a set schedule on what I do. Like as far as Monday, I usually do like a chicken cutlet. Tuesday, we do the taco Tuesday.
Yeah, we
Wednesday,
do
I'll do
too.
either a pork chop or something of that nature. Fridays, I always do a pasta dish or something like that, or a
Nice.
fish. So I have pretty much go-to things, and when something gets thrown off the schedule, it's the vegetables really that are hard. Certain ones they hate peas, other guys like the carrots, so that's really where I have the struggle with. You can't make them happy with the vegetable. Pea
Right.
night is a difficult night in the house here. So. Um,
Nice.
you know what? One of the things I'm curious to ask you, David, I do get hit up by quite a lot of dads that'll ask me questions about, hey, my son or my daughter just came out as gay, and how do I handle it? I don't know how to respond to this, and I don't have any experience to speak from this from. And I'll say, hey, my best advice would be find some other dad that's had this experience and been through it and raised kids and listen to them. What kind of advice do you have for dads out there that have kids that are just coming out?
Look, all your kid wants is acceptance and love. That's it. And the fact that the parents are asking, "What should I do?" That they're doing the right thing right there. I mean, they're taking the time to say, "Hey, I'm wanting to know how to deal with this." But as a parent, I think all you need to do is love your kid. It's the parents that don't ask. It's the parents who don't care are the ones that I'm worried about. Because I think if your kid comes out, all they want to do is be accepted. It's just like any other kid. I think that it's not that different. Um, I think times have changed so much more now. It's much easier to be gay and growing up gay in our world. I mean, maybe not so much in the South or Middle America, but I think that just let your kid be who they're gonna be, and love them for who they are, and tell them that you're here for them and that you're here to support whatever they want to be. And I think you guys will all get through it.
Yeah,
So.
very, very well said, David. And now, right now, when I put this out, hopefully we're in a little bit of a better state here. But right now, the coronavirus, the pandemic has swept the entire world here. How are you guys kind of managing? I know you're in New York City here, where it's very high rate, one of the highest in the country. So how are you guys managing and handling the whole quarantine thing?
Well, we actually got out. We're in the country right now, so we are currently working on a house outside the city that we're lucky enough and fortunate enough to be outside because it was wild. I was downtown 2 days ago in Tribeca, and it was no one out. It was a ghost town, and then I went up and drove our minivan up to Harlem, where we live, and there were people everywhere, which is scary. I mean, it's an epidemic right now. I mean, people should not be on the street. So we got out, and we're trying to self quarantine as much as we can. I went through my freezers. I have a bunch of freezers in our brownstone in Harlem, and just packed 3 coolers worth of meat and vegetables, and so I'm doing my best to thaw out. I thawed out. We had a party in Christmas when we had crab legs, and so I took all the crab and I made crab cakes from Christmas, and I have a prime rib that I'm thawing out to have French dip sandwiches. So I'm getting really creative with all of our leftovers that we have that's frozen, and it's kind of good because we're cleaning out the freezer, cleaning out the fridge.
Yeah, we're all
So we're
getting.
doing.
I
I'm
was gonna
sorry.
say
Go ahead.
I was gonna say we're all getting kind of creative here. Like I said, we're all. I've added homeschool teacher to the resume here, like everybody else. It's we're all trying to figure out how to adapt to this.
So our kids go back to school, digital schooling on Monday. How has that been? I haven't. They've been in spring break, so we haven't dealt with it. But I'm a little worried because I mean I feel like if I'm going to be their tutor, they're going to grow up really stupid.
You know what it is? They have the schedule that's there. It's not like you have to make it up out of thin air. So like I have
Uh-huh.
my older guy, my oldest is like a workhorse. He'll spend 4 or 5 hours a day doing it. He's in all the honors classes. My
Wow.
middle guy, if you don't watch him like a hawk, he's gonna flip the computer right into a game or something like that. So it creates different challenges because all four of them are at different levels. So it's like I said, we've had to adapt here like everybody else.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's going to have to be. I know with both of them, they're sort of the same thing. They need quite a lot of attention in terms of like just sitting with them and making sure that they're learning. So, but that's going to be. I feel like has that taken up so much of your own time? Like, is that?
It's you know what my wife unfortunately she was laid off so now she's home here so it's like we're
Oh
making the
my
best do
God.
with what we have here so it's like we have you know what though we have the time together we're making the best of it and you know what's tough is we constantly try to keep them away from the technology and now it's like without the technology now we're telling them get on the computer get on
Isn't
there
that
so
so funny? I know it's the same.
very
It's now
wild.
now they're going to have so much screen time. So,
Yes, way too
and then
much.
what do you reward them with? You
Right, yeah,
know?
it's very it's creating
So
that
when
how do
they
you kind
want
of
to be
handle.
playing a game.
Are your kids big? You know, I would imagine swiping screens like everybody else. How do you guys kind of monitor or handle the technology with your kids?
Honestly, we're very strict during the week. They don't get any screens, not TV, not iPads during the week. On the weekends, we're a little more lax. You know, you can play. They have to earn throughout the week. They earn points that calculate into minutes for their iPad, so they can learn earn up to like 2.5 hours worth of iPad. Um, but and then we'll watch a movie together as a family. So there's that on the weekend. But now with this coronavirus and being quarantined, it's everything's sort of gone out the window. I mean, we've been giving them so much more screen time. Because it's impossible. It's next to with what the things we have to do because we're still trying to get work done and I'm there's I don't have much help now, so all the stuff that I need to do in terms of my recipe testing or work that I have to create. I've been working on a TV show that I'm writing, so there's been a lot of that, and so we've had to just give them what they want, and they want to play iPad. So it's going to be tricky now. We're going to have to find ways of, okay, now we're going to have to play a game, or we're going to have to go run around the house, or we're going to have to do a craft or play with clay or do things with your hands or help me cook. I mean, my son and I have been doing a lot of baking. So we made pretzels the other day and we made flatbreads. and we made a sourdough loaf. So we've been doing a lot of. He's really into baking, so we've been trying to get into the kitchen a lot.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to do to try to get your kids involved.
Yeah, it's tough because my older three, they all run track, and then my daughter does the gymnastics in the spring, and all that's been canceled. They can't go to their friends' houses. They can't have friends come over, so it's just, it's definitely some challenging. But hopefully,
Let me ask you as a dad, how are you curbing their disappointment? That's been a big thing for me because, their spring break was canceled, all of their gymnastics, their tennis, all of that's been canceled. They're missing their friends. How do you cope with that as a parent?
yeah, what I try to do, David, best as I can is lead by example. I keep my attitude and my spirits high. I keep it exciting and talk about the benefits that we have right now to spend this time together, get creative, board games. We're big chess players, create chess tournaments for ourselves, get the opportunity to watch some movies they never seen. We just watched The Three Amigos the other night. They've never seen it. They loved it. So it's given an opportunity to do things and just trying to keep it positive so that they don't see us. Like I said, my wife lost her job. We haven't made that an issue or made it even a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just trying to kind of lead the way with keeping our head up. Like, hey, everything's happening here. We're gonna take it all. We're gonna make the best that we can out of it. We're getting more time together, and we're gonna utilize it as best we can. So I mean, just trying to keep the spirits up the best that we can possible
Yeah.
here.
Isn't that great? I do feel like even though this epidemic is going on, there are silver linings that you have to look into. Like I really do feel like spending the time together. You don't get that. Like people don't get to have that. So I think it's going to be after all this is done, I think we're all going to be reset in a way. I think it's going to be
100%.
really, I mean, the fact that I read an article the other day that because there's not so many planes in the air, the weather is changing and the atmosphere is already changing, which is that's great. I mean, if we can help our environment and just not driving cars around and not having airplanes in the air, I mean, that's a good thing. It really is.
Yeah, and you wonder too, like, are people going to ever go back to shaking hands ever again after something like this? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like there's definitely going to be some major changes that are going to come from this in the long term. But like everybody else, we got to just kind of wait and see how it all develops.
It's so true. It's so true.
One thing for myself is I've been able to, doing the podcast, so many people I've been trying to get after, now suddenly they're available. All the plans have been canceled. So I've been trying to just
Nice.
record as many interviews as I can here,
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great.
and-
Great for you.
And you know what? You've had so much success here in your career, David. What kind of goals or plans do you have here for yourself for the future?
Well, like I said, I've got people have been wanting me to do another cookbook. I worked so hard 2 years on this cookbook, and it took a lot out of me. And as much as it's really fun, it's not as fulfilling as you think it is, financially or when it comes out. It sort of comes out and then it goes away. But it's your bit of your business card, which has been nice. But I really am trying to get back into acting because I really do miss that. I stopped acting because my mom passed away, but then the kids were so little that I couldn't do a Broadway show and I couldn't go on location because Neil was away, and Neil's he was shooting The Matrix 4, and all filming has stopped. Everybody had to come back from Berlin because they were shooting on location in Berlin. So we'll see what happens. But I've written a new show, and I've got a show on Netflix that got picked up that I'm producing. It's more of a reality show, and that hasn't been announced yet. But I've been still working on that. And there's a feature film that I've been working with another group of people. So I have a lot of coals in the fire. But like I said, everything's sort of at a halt right now. But that's sort of where more of the producing, more of the acting. I'll still be cooking, and I have 2 Food Network specials coming out in October for the Food Network. So those have been announced. I'm doing a Halloween specials, so I have a low-end kids version of Halloween and then a high-end adult version of Halloween. So those will be we'll be filming those. We were supposed to film them in May, but it's not going to happen. So I think we're going to have to film them sometime in June or July for them to come out in October of next year.
Yeah, very
so
cool.
Lots of things going on.
I look forward to that. And the last thing I want to hit you with here, David, I'd love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for the new dad or for that about-to-be father who's out there listening?
get as much sleep as you can and travel as much as you can because it's going to come to a halt. I think that I think as dads, I mean, I'm a different sort of dad, I think, because I'm more of a motherly dad because there's two dads in our family. I think the dad, because the mom, when they have the child, they're sort of the primary caregiver. And I think the dad, don't be afraid to just do tasks. Like do everything that your wife says because they're at a point where they just had a baby and you're both bonding with the baby, but she needs a lot of help and a lot of stability in terms of uh, taking taking the brunt of work or helping out around the house. So I think just keep that in mind.
Yeah, very well said. I love the message. This has been an honor for me. I got to say, David Burtka, you're a first class father all the way, and thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time here on First Class
My
Fatherhood.
pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me. This has been fun.